So I don't know whether it was due to the sheltering in place and the pandemic, but um, in this recent short while, I thought that my joyous effort could use a shot in the arm. Um, I have a very interesting relationship with joyous effort. I was nicknamed for many years here at the Abbey Sergeant Joyous Effort because of my over-the-top effort and my minimalist view of joy. And then somewhere along the line, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, 7 years after I was here, I figured out through my practice and through Venerable's warm and consistent encouragement to relax and to have fun and to start working more on the joy. And maybe you've got plenty of effort, so go from there. And so I think I did formally send her to Timbuktu somewhere about 2010, somewhere about 2011. Every once in a while, she shows up and kind of blindsides me, but then I just kind of turn my mind and send her on her way. So there are some infrequent but rare visits anymore. But what it did bring me to think about is to revisit the four powers that actually nourish and sustain joyous effort. They're kind of like good preventive health care for the mind. And since joyous effort is one of the perfections, this delight in virtue, we need it for the long haul, whether we're bodhisattvas in training here, but all the way up to the 9th, 10th ground, even though it's perfected, bodhisattvas also use this particular mental state to fuel their practice. So I said, well, I better figure out how to do this a little bit more skillfully to have both joy and effort, since it's needed in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the path. So this first power that I wanted to speak about today is called the power of aspiration, or the power of great appreciation and interest in virtue. Geshe Zopa says, and we've heard this from Venerable too, that there are wholesome forms of desire, this delight in wanting to cultivate virtuous actions, to put out their virtuous goals, because if we don't have any interest in them, we're not going to do them. I mean, the spiritual practice just doesn't thrive, it doesn't grow if we don't have this joyous effort. But what I have to admit, and I think that maybe most of us have to admit that not just before I met the Dharma, but all the way through my Dharma life, I have had to acknowledge that my natural affinity is not towards virtue, that is towards the 8 worldly concerns, and that has been most of the underlying foundation of continual practice to counteract my attachment to the 8 worldly and concerns and the aversions. The praise still comes up, the attachment to reputation, the sense pleasures, they're always under there. They're like that big old oil barge that got stuck in the Suez Canal, where it's just kind of pinned in there, throwing everything off, and trying to turn that mind that's so habituated for so many lifetimes to have a natural affinity to virtue is a very, very deep and profound practice. And so one of the things that it says in volume 6, Courageous Compassion, it's a very short section on this particular power, but it does have a crucial point in there. It says that one of the things you want to do is you want to do a comparison about the negative, destructive states of mind and their results, and the positive states of mind and their results. So unlike most of the teachings and advice we get that do not use the comparing mind when it comes to looking at other people's talents and gifts and people rejoicing in their good qualities and the steam is coming out of your ears because you're so jealous, comparing mind is the misery-making mind. But when you want to cultivate virtue, we've got to be able to line up what happens when my mind is in this grumpy, controlling, resentful state. And what is the result? I mean, I can't stand to be around myself, much less other people to tolerate me. And when I'm in a mind that is, when I have a mind that's peaceful and clear and kind, I love being in my own company, and I assume other people do as well. And so one of the things is to really use analysis and this, good, smart mind that we have to figure out, okay, if I'm going to cultivate this affinity, I've got to really see the disadvantage and the advantage of these different states of mind. And so one of the things, too, that became very clear to me in looking at this power is that in the past 18 years, and certainly in the past year, we have had a literal Dharma rain of teachings that give us the exact medicine, the exact tools to be able to compare and to decide between these two states of mind. We have had over the last year, we've had definitions of afflictive states of minds, how they arise, how they feel, how we think, and the suffering that they cause. And we've also had these beautiful teachings on virtuous states of mind, their definitions, how they arise, how our minds feel, how we think, and the happiness that they bring. And so it's not like due to lack of, information and materials that I find myself still struggling around bringing this affinity up, this tendency towards cultivating virtue. And I have to say that I've gotten to be a lot more familiar with how the self-centered thought is the main subversive enemy to me being able to do these comparisons, because the self-centered thought is like the mastermind behind the 8 worldly concerns. And so when I start thinking about that, the 3 lazinesses come up. And so when I'm trying to do the comparison, suddenly I don't have enough time, or I'm too tired, or I'm going to do it tomorrow, or I'm not very smart anyway. So I end up ignoring or minimizing or dismissing the afflictive states of mind that start to arise, and I totally forget about the virtue I'm trying to cultivate. So this self-centered mind is really the hijacker, the tyrant, the seducer. I find it more seductive than a tyrant anymore. It's gone a little bit underground, and so it's much more seductive. And so this power begs the question then that says, do I believe that destructive karma has a result, a suffering result by the way that I'm thinking and speaking and acting right now? Do I believe that this brings a result? Forget about just right now, but what about in the future? Do I believe that or not? And when my mind is under the control of the self-centered thought, I have had some of the most astounding responses to that question that make absolutely no sense, and I fall for them over and over again. So Geshe Sonam Rinchen has this beautiful sentence in his little book on the 6 perfections. He says, if we have this thought that we believe that our decisions on whether we want to create virtue or destructive karma, that we get to make that decision, and when we decide to go for the self-centered thought and the destructive karma that we're creating, he says that by doing that to ourselves, it should break our hearts. But that it doesn't, because we have gotten a little hard-hearted and lack compassion even for ourselves and our own suffering. So the self-centered thought has really, I've seen it just seduce me into all sorts of very unkind, manipulating, just horrible things. And I have no antidote. And I don't care about my own, the self-compassion's not even there, much as caring about somebody else's suffering. So I ask myself, do I care and appreciate the preciousness of my own mind and its potential to the extent that I'm willing to guard it with my life? Like a wound, like Shantideva says, this is like a wound. This is a precious thing that I have. And what am I doing with it? To just start there. That's where I've got to start there. And so one of the things that I have been growing in the past while is that through this power of appreciating and having great interest in virtue, my faith and confidence in karma, that to develop this power of great appreciation, I've got to have much stronger understanding of how karma functions, and that I am the master of my own life. I am the master of my own present and future life. And that bodhisattvas have this incredible confidence in karma to the point that it shatters any tendency that would arise with any form of self-interest that could arise in relationship to how they take care of themselves first and not benefit others. And because they know the results, so they're so steadfast and they're so assured of how their actions, what the results of their actions are, because they understand the functioning of karma and they understand how it flies. And that they also have taken the bodhisattva ethical restraints. So that is also not a small thing, and although they've probably realized it, at the point in their practice, that once they have taken them, they are committed. They are committed to their own awakening, and they're committed to sentient beings. And so to think about, I like Venerable's term of bodhisattvas in training. I like that idea. It's much better than Sergeant Joyous effort. Bodhisattva in training sounds so much more positive and enhancing. And because the Bodhisattva path, it says in Courageous Compassion that it is long, entails formidable deeds like giving away our body in charity. And always the thought of bodhisattvas going to the hell realms to live there to help sentient beings, I think, is a formidable deed as well. We want to aspire to be able to engage in bodhisattva practices in the future. And the power of the aspiration of great interest in virtue is a really crucial piece to this. And in closing, I want to say that the wisdom and the method side of joyous effort, that's what I'm starting to see too, that it's not just the method side of the path. To compare wisely and kindly for our own good and for the benefit of others, is the wisdom part of joyous effort, especially this power, is to understand and really deeply take to heart the functioning of karma. That is a form of wisdom. To understand that the self-centered thought is a reification of the self. We are not going to get anywhere much farther on the path that we don't identify that self-centered thought and dismantle and destroy it. And that the method side of joyous effort is creating virtue, benefiting others, and growing our own good qualities. So those two wings of the bird really work beautifully with this particular far-reaching practice. So revisiting it, I feel so much less sergeantized, and I feel much more bodhisattva in training. And so I hope that is of benefit. There are 3 more powers that I'll share over time, but this one seems to be the strongest part of my practice right now.